Welcome, wherever you are, resting in bed, preparing for sleep, or simply in need of calm, I invite you to settle in. Let your shoulders relax and prepare for a gentle journey backward in time. Tonight, we travel to one of history's most famous civilizations, the bustling, magnificent, and often brutal world of ancient Rome. But this won't be the Rome of triumphant emperors or blood-soaked arenas. Instead, we'll explore the slower, quieter rhythms of life as it was really lived, by ordinary people, forgotten figures, silent ruins, and the contrasting elegance of the elite. Over the next 2 hours, we'll move gently through 4 parts. First, we'll step into the sandals of a common Roman, a tenant in a noisy, chaotic apartment block, waking to the sounds and smells of the ancient city. Then we'll follow the winding political journey of one of Rome's most fascinating minds, the orator and statesman Cicero, his ambitions, letters, and in time, his fall. After that, we'll wander slowly through the ash-preserved streets of Pompeii, observing quiet details of Roman homes, markets, and forgotten meals. And finally, we'll recline, quite literally, at the private feasts of the Roman elite, where etiquette was as important as taste. Each section will unfold gently, with careful detail, encouraging not alertness, but soft curiosity and the kind of peaceful attention that may fade into sleep. Now breathe deeply and imagine yourself in the Roman Empire. We begin our journey not in marble halls or grand villas, but in a crumbling tenement where a bucket served as a toilet and the street outside rarely went silent. Imagine waking not in a soft bed, but on a straw-stuffed mat, atop a wooden loft, inside a crowded, crumbling tenement building. It's still dark outside, but the city never truly sleeps. Below your room, through wooden floorboards, you hear a baby crying, a dog barking, someone arguing in slurred Latin, the faint crackle of a cooking fire, already started hours before dawn. This is an insula, a Roman apartment block rising several stories high, built of timber, mud brick, and anxiety. These buildings, prone to collapse and fire, housed the majority of Rome's population. Often, they leaned slightly with age, creaked with the weight of too many tenants, and swayed in the wind like tired trees. You step carefully, watching for puddles, though sometimes the puddles aren't water. Even the stone beneath your feet is worn smooth by centuries of sandals. You walk it now, toward the Macellum, the market, where vegetables are wilted and expensive, but maybe you'll afford a cabbage or a bit of stale bread. If you're poor, like most Romans, your diet is repetitive and rough. Barley porridge, lentils, perhaps some salted fish, if the coin stretches. Meat is rare, fruit seasonal, and water, often unclean unless boiled or mixed with vinegar. Each day begins the same. Wake early, work hard, queue for grain, avoid trouble, and return to your insula before dark. The Roman government, aware of the people's restlessness, distributes free grain, a nona, but getting it means standing in a long line, often for hours. You wait, shifting from foot to foot beneath the harsh Mediterranean sun. You hear the clatter of horse hooves on stone and step aside quickly. Roman traffic laws are few, accidents common. You clutch your small sack of barley close, stepping back into the shadows of a towering temple column. Now imagine the daily soundscape, not gentle birdsong, but iron on iron. Chisels yelling vendors, temple bells, the cries of children, and always the low murmur of a city never still. And what if you break the law, or simply offend the wrong person? Punishment is swift and rarely subtle. For petty theft, a beating. For more serious offenses, crucifixion, exile, or being tossed into the arena. Roman justice favored visibility and finality. Yet amid this hardship, there is also routine and rhythm. Public baths offer not just cleanliness, but conversation. You scrub yourself beside strangers, the walls echoing with laughter and argument. You discuss politics you do not vote in, philosophies you cannot read, and gladiators you might admire, though you've never seen the Colosseum from inside. At night, your insula is dim. Candles flicker, rats scurry. You share a room, perhaps with family or strangers. Outside, someone sings off-key, while footsteps echo up the stairs. The day is done, though Rome itself never quiets completely. This was the life of most Romans, not marble, not glory, but struggle, repetition, endurance. And in this endless rhythm, the days pass one after another. Noisy, dirty, familiar. Now let's step away from the crowded streets and enter a quieter room, lit by a single oil lamp. A man sits at a desk, pen in hand, writing words he hopes will echo for centuries. He is Cicero. Picture now a different corner of ancient Rome. Not the tenements and markets, but a quiet study. Walls lined with scrolls, a window open to the muted hum of the city outside. A man in a simple white tunic, carefully draped, dips a stylus into ink and leans over a wax tablet. His brow is furrowed, not with physical labor but with thought. With words, this is Marcus Tullius Cicero. Born in 106 BCE in the small town of Arpinum, Cicero was not born into Rome's elite. He came from the equites, the class just below the senatorial nobility. His family was respectable, educated, but not powerful. And yet, by sheer will, brilliance, and rhetoric, Cicero would rise to the very center of Roman politics. He was, first and foremost, a speaker, a lover of language. His voice, measured, persuasive, and sometimes sharp, was his sword. While others fought on the battlefield, Cicero fought in courts and senates. He believed that ideas could govern empires, and that a well-crafted sentence could shift the weight of history. His early career blossomed as a lawyer. He defended clients, prosecuted corruption, and quickly earned a reputation for both eloquence and courage. One of his earliest famous cases was the prosecution of Gaius Verres, a corrupt governor in Sicily. In his speeches against Verres, Cicero painted vivid, damning pictures, not just of the man, but of the system that had allowed him to thrive. But Cicero was not content with words alone. He wanted office influence. And so, step by step, he climbed the cursus honorum, Rome's ladder of public service. Questor edile, praetor, and finally, in 63 BCE, consul, the highest office in the Republic. It was during his consulship that Cicero faced what he believed was his greatest test, the Catiline conspiracy. Lucius Sergius Catilina, a patrician with debts and ambition, had plotted to overthrow the Republic. Cicero claimed to have uncovered the plot and delivered a series of speeches, the Catilinarian orations, before the Senate, urging swift action. The conspirators were arrested, executed. Without trial, Cicero claimed he had saved the Republic. Others whispered of overreach, of ambition hidden beneath a veil of righteousness. And so shadows began to grow. When power shifted and populist forces surged, Cicero found himself out of favor. In 58 BCE, he was exiled, formally charged for executing Roman citizens without due process. He wandered from city to city, heart heavy, pride wounded. He returned a year later, welcomed by many, but he had tasted instability. And he never quite regained his earlier standing. Then came Caesar. Julius Caesar's rise altered the political world Cicero had spent a lifetime mastering. Cicero admired Caesar's intellect, but distrusted his hunger for control. After Caesar's assassination in 44 BCE, Cicero aligned with the assassins, Brutus and Cassius, in principle, though not in action. He believed the Republic might yet be saved. But power fell not to old ideals, but to a new alliance, the Second Triumvirate, Octavian, Antony, and Lepidus. Of these, Cicero despised Mark Antony most. It was a dangerous miscalculation. When the triumvirate began their purge of enemies, names listed coldly, efficiently, Cicero's was among them. He fled, tried to hide. But in December of 43 BCE, he was found by soldiers on the road near Formiae. The order was not just to kill him, but to make him an example. His hands were severed, the hands that had written. They were displayed on the rostra, the speaker's platform, in the Roman Forum. A chilling symbol, the silencing of a voice that had dared to defy. And yet his words survived. Cicero's letters and philosophical works on duty, friendship, old age, the nature of the gods, remain some of the most enduring documents of Roman thought. Even in exile, even in fear, he kept writing. He wrote to his dear friend Atticus, to his brother, to his son. The tone varies, sometimes hopeful, often anxious, occasionally serene. There's a quiet rhythm to his thoughts. A man who believed that if he could only shape his thoughts carefully enough, the world might make sense again. In this, Cicero is not so distant from us, trying to find clarity in the chaos of events. We leave him now, not in triumph but in reflection. A man of words, silenced but not forgotten. Let's now take a softer turn, away from politics, from execution orders and tribunals. Let's walk slowly, almost dreamlike, through the ash-covered streets of Pompeii. Now let us leave behind the Senate chambers and the shifting allegiances of power. Let us travel south, down along the coast, to the shadow of a great mountain. The year is 79 CE. You find yourself in Pompeii, a bustling Roman town nestled near the Bay of Naples. Life here is steady, rhythmic. The sun warms the red-tiled roofs. The streets are narrow, paved in heavy basalt stone, worn smooth by countless sandaled feet. The soft clatter of cartwheels, the low murmur of conversations in Latin, and the occasional bark of a dog form a gentle backdrop to the town's daily routine. Pompeii is alive, but it will not be for long. Beneath the surface of nearby Mount Vesuvius, pressure builds, quietly, relentlessly. But we will return to that moment soon. First, imagine yourself walking its streets, long before the ash fell. There are bakeries with rounded ovens still warm from the morning's loaves. The scent of wheat, olive oil, and ash mingles in the air. Vendors lean over their counters, selling figs, garum, and loaves, stamped with seals from wealthy estates. You pass painted walls, frescoes of gods, myths, lovers. Many are surprisingly intimate, even explicit. Art here was not always sacred. It was often earthy, playful, and candid. In one house, a mosaic reads, "Cave Canem, beware of the dog," beneath a stone image of a vigilant hound. Step into a thermopolium, the Roman version of a fast food stall. Large ceramic jars are sunk into a stone counter filled with lentils, meat stews, and olives. A quick lunch for a working person. The hum of voices rises and falls like a tide. But behind closed doors, there is elegance too. In larger homes, atriums open to the sky, with pools of rainwater collected at the center. The floors are cool underfoot. Mosaic patterns depicting dolphins, gladiators, and scenes from Homer's epics. Walls are painted with serene landscapes, illusionary gardens, vineyards, temples, sometimes wrapped in gold leaf. And still there are secrets. Graffiti decorates many walls, ordinary thoughts, political slogans, declarations of love, crude jokes. If anyone does not believe in Venus, they should gaze at my girlfriend. I'm amazed, O wall, that you haven't fallen down, since you're holding up the boring writings of so many poets. It is deeply human, oddly modern. Pompeii was not a city of myth. It was a place of flesh and breath and banality. Then one day in late summer, everything stopped. Just after midday on August 24th, or perhaps another date, depending on which historian you follow, the mountain erupted. The sky darkened. A roar rose from the earth, and then came the ash. At first it was fine, like powder drifting on the breeze. People fled. Some stayed, thinking it would pass. But the ash thickened. Roofs collapsed under its weight. Pumice stones rained down. Hours later, pyroclastic surges, waves of superheated gas and debris, swept down the slopes. They engulfed the town. Silence fell. Centuries passed. There is an intimacy to it all, a stillness. And while many have tried to make Pompeii a cautionary tale, a moral warning about decadence, the truth is simpler and more profound. It was a town. People lived there. They worked, they loved, they joked, they complained. And one day the sky fell. Today we walk those same streets, quietly, carefully. We see their footsteps preserved in hardened mud. We look at the frescoes they painted to make their homes beautiful. We read their jokes and arguments scribbled on the walls. They are long gone, but their world lingers gently. As we leave Pompeii, we turn back to Rome once more, but not to its grime or danger. Now let us step inside a very different life. A quiet dining room, polished couches, platters of rare delicacies and honey-sweet wine. Let us explore the gentle rhythm of power in a Roman senator's feast. You are no longer walking the cobbled streets of Pompeii. You are no longer lining up for grain or ducking the slop tossed from a tenement window. Now you recline. Soft cushions support your side, and polished marble cools the soles of your feet. The room around you glows in the late afternoon light, filtered through thin veils of linen at the windows. Incense curls lazily in the air, frankincense perhaps, or imported myrrh, its scent blending with the heady aromas drifting from the triclinium, the Roman dining room. Welcome to the home of a Roman senator. Tonight is a convivium, a formal dinner, equal parts feast, politics, and quiet theatre. Imagine yourself among Rome's elite. You wear a loose-fitting tunic, or perhaps a fine stola if you're a guest of distinction. A slave gently washes your hands with rosewater before offering a towel woven from Egyptian flax. The evening unfolds in 3 acts. Ergebri, Gustatio, the appetizer. The first dishes are light. You sample olives soaked in honey brine, spiced eggs, and perhaps a tiny lark, roasted whole. Small plates of sea urchin or cheese wrapped in fig leaves are passed around. Conversation is polite, often academic. Philosophy, poetry, perhaps a recent court case. Wine flows, but it is always diluted, often with herbs or seawater. Drinking it neat is frowned upon, considered the habit of barbarians and actors. Act 2. Cena, the main course. The heart of the meal arrives in waves. Dishes are extravagant, not just in flavor but in display. Stuffed dormice crisped and coated in honey and poppy seeds. Flamingo tongue served in vinegar. Wild boar presented whole, with sausages spilling from its belly like a harvest. These aren't everyday meals. These are performances. Every detail, from the imported peppercorns to the garnishes of rose petals, whispers power and wealth. Between courses, poets may recite a verse, or musicians softly pluck a lyre in the corner. But not too loudly. The elite avoid vulgar noise. Everything is measured, contained, like the empire itself. Akeshi 3. Secundae mensae, the dessert. Now, your host serves fruits from distant provinces, pomegranates from Carthage, dates from Judea, apples chilled in snow brought down from the Apennines. A honey-sweet wine is poured as the sky outside dims. Slaves circulate quietly, refilling cups, clearing away silver platters. The conversation becomes more personal. Friends lean in, eyes grow heavy. The room is filled with a sense of ease, not warmth exactly, but the calm of order, hierarchy, and ritual. Yet beneath the softness, there is structure. Nothing here is accidental. The seating order reflects your status. The food selection reflects the host's reach. The topics of conversation are carefully steered, never too controversial, never too plain. To eat like a Roman senator is not just to indulge, it is to signal. You demonstrate your education, your moderation, your command of etiquette, even your restraint. Vomiting mid-meal, while possible for some, was considered vulgar in this setting, not refined. And above it all, your host listens. He gauges alliances, flatters rivals, and plants the seeds of favors he may later call in. The meal is long, sometimes stretching past midnight. But the rhythms are slow, the lighting soft, the voices low. There is luxury here, yes, but also calculation. The grandeur of Rome does not rest solely on its armies. It rests in part on the art of the meal. And as the plates are cleared and the candles burn low, you recline still, lulled by the warmth of wine and the steady murmur of Latin voices. The convivium ends not with fanfare, but with a quiet bow, a final sip, a nod of departure. You rise, perhaps a little stiff from the marble couch, and step once more into the Roman night. Stars overhead, the faint scent of cooked honey lingering in your sleeve. The streets are quiet now. The senators retire to their atriums. Slaves clean the platters, douse the lamps, sweep the crumbs of empire into the waiting dark. And so, we leave ancient Rome behind, its filth and glory, its feasts and latrines, its heroes and ash-covered towns. In the distance, the city still breathes. But for now, your journey is done. And now, the marble corridors fade. The dust of the forum settles. The echoes of sandals on stone grow soft and distant. You've walked through alleys and arches, through tenements and temples. You've stood shoulder to shoulder with plebeians in grain lines and reclined among senators beneath painted ceilings. You've seen Rome not as a monument, but as a place alive with contradiction, where unimaginable power coexisted with daily discomfort, where beauty and decay shared the same cobbled streets. The rhythm of Roman life was a delicate balance of order and chaos, of ritual and raw survival. And through it all, the people, whether philosophers or street vendors, slaves or emperors, lived each day bound by time, duty, and belief. In some ways not unlike us, to make sense of the world through myth, law, and meal. As you lie there now, in your own quiet space, miles and millennia from the Tiber's banks, remember that history isn't just the grand or the violent. It's the slow steps of daily life. The taste of salted bread, the hum of a crowded bathhouse, the sigh of a mother as she watches her child sleep centuries ago. You've made your way through a day in Rome. Not a day you would have easily survived, perhaps, but one that tells us so much about what it meant to live, to endure, to aspire in a world not so very different from our own. Let the sounds of Rome fall silent now. Let the streets grow still. The city fades, and only its memory remains, carried gently on the winds of time. Sleep well, traveler of the past. Tomorrow brings another journey.